Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of OMG WAT DAT COVID edition. For those of you watching, I'm here with Skylar and Carolyn of Hawaii Hauntings. We'll be joining them on a tour of Waikiki. So get ready while we get set, and I will see you once we start. Alright. Huh? No. Hi guys, and we're back. This is Jubu, and I'm here with Skylar and Carolyn. We're gonna go live in a few minutes. Just to show you what's going on. So, all right. All right, guys, you guys are being recorded again. Completely.
Hi. All right.
So I'd say let's get started.
Okay. Well, everybody, thank you so much, first of all, for joining us here in our very first...
Okay, you need light.
I do.
It's too dark.
Right over here. Haunted Waikiki tour. Haunted Waikiki historical tour. We are right now on Seaside Avenue. That flanks the Ala Wai Canal. And I wanted us to start here because the Ala Wai is really sort of the point where ancient Hawaii ends in Waikiki and then modern Waikiki ends. This canal, if you're not from Oahu, from Hawaii, was built in 1928. It was actually called the Waikiki Dredging Canal, and it was a project that was floated by Walter Dillingham, who was a businessman. He lived over where La Pietra is. That was his actual estate. And before that, La Pietra was Papa Ena, which was a Luakini heiau, a sacrificial heiau, a very important heiau for the Native Hawaiians. And that is at the very far end of Kaiulani, just like kind of on the slopes of Diamond Head, if you will. And at some point in the future, we will definitely go there because there's a lot of mana, there's a lot of spirit.
Yeah, the archery range area is
very
real.
Very real, very real. So the Ala Wai here is 2 miles long, and at the deepest point, it's only 5 meters deep. There is a lot of fish here, but you don't want to fish. Well, you can if you want to, but you don't want to eat the fish. It's mostly tilapia. Unlike most canals, man-made canals,
Talking about tilapia.
this actually is carved out of coral. And what did they do with all the coral? They actually took it and they moved it over to fill in what is now Fort DeRussy. Because Fort DeRussy was 2 huge fish ponds, or locals. And when we go to Fort DeRussy, we'll talk a little bit about some stories that I have over there, personal stories and also stories I've heard through different tours and such. But that area is very, very spiritual too, with a lot of just layers of history, if you will. So I wanted to start here also because Seaside Avenue leads all the way. If you go up Seaside Avenue, it leads to the Royal Hawaiian Hotel, which is the second oldest hotel in Waikiki that still stands. It's the Pink Hotel, the big Pink Hotel. And before it was the Royal Hawaiian Hotel, it was called the Waikiki Seaside Hotel. And that hotel employed a man by the name of Miles Fukunaga. And Miles Fukunaga was a young Japanese immigrant, son of a young Japanese immigrant family, who was very poor. He worked 80 hours a week in their kitchen, and he was very frustrated because his family was going to be evicted from their home. And so he had a lot of rage, a lot of anger and resentment, and he directed it towards a man by the name of Jameson, who was a local banker and who controlled the paperwork really for the house that they lived in. Miles Fukunaga designed a plan to kidnap Jameson's son, Gil Jameson, Georgie, as they called him, and he did. Georgie went to Punahou school. He was a student there, and he was 10 years old. And he ended up getting kidnapped in such a way as Fukunaga went there and pretended he was like a hospital orderly, and he pretended to be sent on a mission to get Georgie to take him to the hospital where his mother was in an accident, quote unquote. So Punahou School released Georgie to Miles Fukunaga, and Miles Fukunaga took him to this area right here. And he ended up killing him by hitting him on the head with a steel chisel. And he hid his body in a glen. And back in those days, the canal was newly built, because this was in 1928. It was just built. But there's all this foliage, right? None of this sidewalk situation here right now, but like lots and lots of foliage. And he hid his body there, and that's where his body was eventually found. And so this area is very much an area where many people have felt a presence, or different types of presences. And, you know, who's to say? It could be the ghost of the little boy Gil. Miles Fukunaga ended up, of course, being arrested and tried, and he was executed for his crime. But this is a very notorious area because of that very notorious crime. I'd say of the two huge cases in Hawaii, the first being really the Massey trial in the 1930s, the Miles Fukunaga case preceded that and was also very notorious. So I wanted to say before we move on from this place, if you look across the way, that big building right here is called the Marco Polo building. And I don't know if you all remember, about 3 years ago, right? July 2017, there was a fire in the midsection of the Marco Polo, right?
The one where everybody's now trying to get the building up to go.
That fire set a precedence for all buildings forevermore of 74 feet and higher to be outfitted with sprinkler systems, new fire alarm systems and such. But the midsection of Marco Polo, a few of the units were set afire. I don't recall why, but I do know that there was a man who died and a dog. Three people who died. And that was a very crazy day. I distinctly remember it because this whole boulevard was packed, car to car, right? And all we could do was watch this huge flame engulfing this building. I mean, it was like we couldn't go anywhere. It was crazy. The Marco Polo building, every time I walk by here, I think of that day. Well, shall we walk on ahead?
Okay.
We'll walk towards what I guess, Townside? Townside? Just infection. And that's really, you gotta be careful in this area. It's very, very polluted. And so, just so you know, and not many people do, the Ala Wai was actually supposed to have two openings. This end right here, the one going towards Diamond Head, was supposed to lead out to the ocean. And then here, leads out to the ocean at this point. But they ran out of money, so they couldn't finish that project.
They seem to always run out of money for everything.
They do. And I should back up and say Waikiki is, it means sprouting water, right? Fresh water. And that's because there were 3 streams that fed into Waikiki. And those 3 streams they actually came through the Ala Wai from the mountains. One went to, it poured out of Kukua Beach, just of the Diamond Head side of the Halekulani Hotel, was the Pacific Beach. You know the hotel with the big aquarium? Remember that one? The other stream was, it led out right over by the Outlet Hotel where Duke's is, the Duke's bar. And the last stream was let out right over by the Duke's Lagoon at the Hilton Hawaiian Village. So those 3 streams made Waikiki like the thriving version. And I think this whole area was taro fields, right? Taro fields.
I don't remember that.
Duck ponds. This is way before our time, where we were even born. And rice fields. When the Chinese immigrants came, they really developed the duck ponds. And the duck ponds became really just a bastion of mosquitoes. It's kind of like what happened at Kaiulani Park with the pond there. The mosquitoes became a huge problem. But prior to the Chinese immigrants coming, the Hawaiians that lived here were at least 100,000 strong, who lived in Waikiki and up into the mountains. Can you imagine? The Ahupua'a of Waikiki was very, very fertile. This whole area, the beach area, was the royal playground. Was where the royal Li'i, or native Hawaiian Li'i, would come and enjoy the breezes. You know, because back in the day, Honolulu was a dusty town. It wasn't full of the acacia trees and the monkey pod trees, the beautiful trees that we see today. Those came later. But back in the day, you know, back when Oahu became like sort of the hub, the economic hub of the island chain, it was very dusty and hot, muggy. And so the royals, they wanted to come over here and enjoy their time. And they did. And that's why this was a very important place to develop for haole businessmen. They saw an opportunity to capitalize on the culture and the historical significance of the area, and also like loop it into like a commercial sort of prospect for themselves. And they knew they couldn't do it if there was a lot of like soggy land, marshland.
Yeah.
So they had to do something about it. And one of the things they did was create the Ala Wai Canal and fill up the rest of Waikiki so it could be a level piece of land to build what we see now are hotels and development and such. So here we're gonna head on towards a couple more lights.
Okay.
And I was telling Jogu and Skylar before we got on camera, there was a recent death. I'm gonna say it was like a year and a half ago now, right?
Was it that long ago?
Or maybe even less than that. It was very recent. It was recent.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember now.
was it in 2020?
No.
2019?
It had to be in 2019, but early. Like 2019. There was a woman, I won't say her name, but she was not from here. She was a visitor from, I want to say someplace in the Midwest. And her body was found just on the other side of the bridge. There's a Halekulani bridge, right?
Oh, really?
Bridge.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, she was bound. She was found bound, shackled, right, with zip ties. And at first, you know, the police thought, okay, this is a homicide because what else would she be doing in the Ala Wai zip tied? But after some further investigation, they discovered, mainly because she left a suicide note, that it was a suicide. And it's crazy because the synchronicity of it was strange. Anytime I hear about suicides or deaths in Waikiki, because I run a hotel, I always cross-reference the name if I can find it to my database to see if it's a guest. Because I've had a couple of guests, unfortunately, who have been victims of deaths, drownings, nothing, no murders, thankfully. Knock on wood, I hope I never have to deal with that. But a couple of drownings. So the first thing I did was I tried to find out if she was a guest of ours. And she was a registered, she had a reservation with us, but she never showed up for it. And she ended up actually showing up to another hotel, which was a building I used to manage. So that was also a synchronicity. And she did stay there. She stayed there for like 10 or 11 days, I think. And that's where she was staying when she checked out. And then she committed suicide. And her body was found just on the other side of the bridge.
Wow, that's a far walk though.
Yeah. Can you imagine coming across something like that though?
Yeah, that'd be a horrible sight to see, finding someone in that condition.
It's terrible. You know, Waikiki, for as beautiful as it is, and you know, just having the history of being a royal playground, has a lot of dark history here. A lot of crime happened in Waikiki and still happens in Waikiki. Back in the 70s, there was a huge conglomerate, organizational conglomerate of crime here, and it was mostly around drugs and prostitution. And there were many murders that occurred, with the Ala Wai being sort of like the last resting place of these unfortunate characters. And you know, these days now, with Waikiki being as empty as it is because of the COVID pandemic, crime is even more evident because there's not as many people around. Oh, you don't want you to fall in the Ala Wai.
That would be funny. Jubu!
No.
Jubu fell in the Ala Wai. That's our comedy of the night.
And I tainted the water. Yeah.
No, we'd have to like take you to a hazmat center or something.
What's up, everybody?
Any questions? Any particular interest in Waikiki that you want to know about?
While we were walking.
While we're
to the
walking
site.
in the direction of Makali.
Someone said the Sheraton Waikiki is haunted.
Ooh, Sheraton Waikiki, the actual Sheraton Waikiki.
Yeah, Logan.
I bet. Sheraton Waikiki, which is right next to the Royal Hawaiian. That whole area, there was actually a heiau there. Not many people know that there are two heiaus in Waikiki. There is one, Papaena'ena, which is the La Pietra area over Kaiulani side, Kaiulani Park. And then the other heiau was by the Royal Hawaiian. And it was named after one of the three streams. I'm gonna pull up my notes because I won't remember
What the name?
the name. Let me take my notes here. It was Apua Heiau. That was the name of the heiau, and it was a Luakini heiau, so a sacrificial heiau. And heiau in Hawaiian, it's a spiritual center, and there are two types. There's an agricultural heiau, and there's a Luakini heiau, which is a sacrificial heiau. And that heiau that I just said, that was in the area of the Royal Hawaiian Hotel, which is where King Kamehameha I really started his administrative center when he came to Oahu. That's where his troops landed. Can you imagine all the thousands of canoes that came, washed onto the shore? What a dramatic scene that must have been. And if you want a visual on that, just go to the Royal Hawaiian Hotel and go over to the ballroom, the main ballroom that they have there. And there is a gallery, and it's full of Herb Kani pieces. Herb Kani is an amazing artist who loved to portray ancient Hawaiian scenes. And there is an amazing scene of that time in history where Kamehameha came with his thousands of canoes to conquer the island of Oahu.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Joe said there was also a heiau on Kapolani Beach, I believe, near the natatorium.
Oh, the natatorium.
Natatorium.
Yeah, we were just talking about the natatorium.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were talking about how the natatorium, along with all of the rest of Waikiki, was elevated by the coral that they dredged from this canal, right? So they took the coral and they leveled off Waikiki to raise it 6 feet above sea level, which is not a lot. 6 feet's about how tall you are.
Yeah,
right?
I'm like 6'1", yeah.
Yeah, so can you imagine? Waikiki is only 6 feet up above sea level, which means that it just takes one big storm, right? Or a tsunami to really wreak havoc here in this part of the island.
Someone, B said, what did Ala Wai look like in ancient times?
Ala Wai was a marshland. So because the three streams poured into Waikiki, it created a natural irrigation for the kalo, aloi, and the fish pond. The huge fish pond that where Fort DeRussy is today. Fort DeRussy is now what we know it to be like a military recreation park, right? That's where the Halekulani is, the hotel for the military. But really, before that, it was a bustling community, which was centered around the local, the fish ponds. And because it was a very important source of food for the Hawaiian people, there are legends surrounding that area of mo'o, water protecting spirits, right? Several mo'o legends of that area. And mo'o, very interesting because mo'o is a serpentine creature, right? A lizard, if you will, a snake, something like that. And it's not unlike other legends in other cultures where there's some sort of entity that protects the water. And water is very important. Water is life, right? Fresh water. But also the fish ponds, super important. I mean, the Hawaiians were so ingenious. 100,000 Hawaiians living here in 1789 when Captain Cook came to the island. That is incredible for an island culture to have that many people on this island. I mean, all of the islands total, they said there were 300,000. Can you imagine? In ancient times. And they did that without having to rely on cattle ranching or even traditional farming that we know of in Western society. They did it mostly with fish ponds and kaloi and just, you know, understanding the land and appreciating how it can feed them and support them. Whenever I go to Port DeRussy, I think about how big that fish pond must have been because what they did was they had a makaha. The makaha was a gate that would keep the larger fish in, right? Once they got to be a certain size, you know, basically big enough to eat, right?
Yeah, they get caught and they won't go out. Yeah.
They get caught and they get eaten. And it's amazing. It's a good thing. I was told this by a very, very famous storyteller of Mo'olelo here in Hawaii. His name's Uncle Joe Recker. And he taught me a lot of the stories in Waikiki, but he always, when we go to Port DeRussy, he paints this picture of this beautiful land that was filled to the brim with fish. Makes me hungry every time I go there. And he talks about how, thank God, the people who developed Port DeRussy and Waikiki's total didn't put concrete into the ground. It was all coral, right? So if they wanted to, they could actually dig up that coral and they could fill the pond again. Can you imagine?
Cool.
Amazing. So cool. And if you want to see a really, like a fish pond that's actually thriving, a fish pond in Kaneohe.
Yep.
Beautiful. Beautiful representation, an actual thriving fish pond. Think of something like that. Google that. Look at it in images and think about having something like that in Port DeRussy, because that's what it was back in the day. Any other questions? We're getting a workout, guys, huh? We're walking around in masks too.
Actually, that's what's causing me issues right now, that mask.
Your mask. If I was wearing glasses, they'd be fogging up.
Yeah, I know.
Do you have to wear glasses?
No, but when I wear my sunglasses, like, it fogs up too, so I know the feeling. This is the scene. This is the moment when I push tube windows. An Ala Wai.
Comedic break.
A little comedic break, yeah.
We're getting close to where we're going to cross over to Port DeRussy. I have so many memories of so many hotels here because I grew up here. I moved here in '86. So I grew up here. I went to Aleimanu Middle School, Intermediate School. I went to Radford High School with UH. And as a college student, I used to party in Waikiki. So there's like practically every street corner I have a memory on. Because back in those days, Jobu will remember because you remember those days. What did they mean? Waikiki was fun.
Fun and dangerous.
And dangerous, yeah.
Yes.
It's definitely a different experience. Now that Skylar's, it's not anything like it used to be.
Yeah, it's totally different from how it was.
Totally. There were so many more like nightclubs and like nightlife. But I wanted to tell you guys, and maybe I should wait to tell you when we get there, but I guess I'll tell you now. When I was a teenager, I'd say I was about 15, I went to Duke's Beach, where the Versace was, right, of Duke. And was sitting on the beach. I happened to look up at the Everside Tower of the Hyatt Regency. I just looked up and I saw midway somebody jump from a window. And that freaked me out. Obviously, I was like, holy blink. Oh my God. So I ran to the substation because the substation's right there, yeah. And I ran to the substation and I told them, oh my God, somebody jumped from the height. So they sent some officers over there to check it out. And they found no body. There was no body.
Oh, really?
But what's strange was, they said I was not the only one who saw it. There were other people who saw it as well. There's no way that this person could have landed, got up and walked away, because it was midway where that person jumped. I was taking it to be a woman because of the long hair that I saw.
Wow.
But what was crazy was, since that day, I'm convinced that something happened to me where I see suicide victims in Waikiki. And when I was a teenager, I used to think, oh man, you're nuts, you're crazy. You have lost your mind. But I'm convinced of it, and the reason I say that is because, well, I've lived and worked in Waikiki for almost 10 years, right? I see a lot of strange
Things.
and that's not unusual, because there are a lot of strange people. We've got a big homeless population. Most of them are mentally bad mental things. But the people that I'm seeing are not homeless people. They're mostly Japanese, and they're mostly looking to me like just completely lost, big in their face, not understanding where they are, not understanding where they're going, and just walking through people, you know? And I see this all the time, and it's gotten to the point where I'm just used to seeing it now. And when I have lots of contacts with HPD, and we talk about a lot. I've been told there's like 5 suicides a day in Waikiki. Can you imagine? Certainly not during these times. I hope not, because there's not that many people. But on any given busy Waikiki day or night, there's 5 suicides, and they're mostly jumpers.
Are we crossing?
Yeah. I'll push the button.
Good, I'll pull up my pants.
Yeah. Dee says, I miss Waikiki during the old school years, especially 1990 weekend cruise nights and hotel parties.
Wait, 1990?
Oh yeah, Dee's a little younger than me, but I know she remembers the days where Waikiki was fun. We promise, Skylar, Waikiki was really fun back in the day.
It was like Vegas in a way.
No, not that.
Not that fun.
Not that crazy.
Not that crazy, but it was definitely more than it is now. I promise. This is a landmark, Waikiki. And this building was designed the way it is because that middle pass-through, that section that's empty, was designed so that dragons could pass through. A lot of Asian buildings, especially in Malaysia and Korea, Singapore, they have buildings like this because there's a belief that dragons will pass through and give it good luck. And so this was a building that was designed like this. When I first saw it go up, I was like, what in the world? And why would they waste so much space? Architecturally, right? But I had no idea that there was a reason for it, and now it makes sense. So that's a landmark Waikiki. It's right on the corner of what? Is this Macaulay?
Yeah, this is Macaulay.
Macaulay and Ala Wai. And they have it lit up at night. Pretty colors.
Like a dragon.
Yeah. Very cool. I'll push this button too. I always forget to push buttons. I want to show you a book that is a really special book to me. It's an old book. And one of our members, Davin, recommended it for us. For me, and I've actually ordered special from Amazon. It's called Waikiki Dialogue. It's written by a lady by the name of Vanita Axon. She's a PhD. It's published by Island Heritage, and it has all this invaluable information about Waikiki. It breaks down street names, the history, She does talk a little bit about some spirituality stuff, but it's not like a ghost book. It's a history book. And for me, the essence of a ghost story is the history, right?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You gotta know the history.
Without the history, how do you know it's haunted?
Right. Like it's a puzzle that you have to figure out. And we were just talking about the possibility of going back to the Kasha house at some future point. Not tonight.
The Kasha house.
But,
Otherwise known as the Kaimuki home.
The Kaimuki home, the demon home in Kaimuki. But that's a really good example of how getting to know an area's history can help you understand why, as the property or even people are haunted the way they are. And then hopefully help them somehow. Help them in their issues that they're having. Any other questions?
More comments on the good old days of Waikiki. More like rock and roll clubs back in the day. You were near the rock and roll clinic.
Yeah. So some of the clubs that I remember, not the strip clubs. That's on Kaiulani Boulevard. There actually were strip clubs here in Waikiki, but that was on Heiau.
That was the high-end ones, though.
Yeah, they had some high-end ones. But Silly's nightclub was not a strip club, but it was a nightclub. We had Pink Cadillac on Enna Road, which is right over here behind this building. We had Maharajas, which became Zanzibar, right? And we have the Shack, the Mad Dogs. Play Bar, I think, is still open.
The Play Bar is a sketchy one, though.
It is. We had Senior Frogs. That was kind of like newer. Level 4.
Senior Frogs?
Yeah,
that was a strip bar?
No, that was like a little dance club. Over in the Royal Hawaiian, I believe. Shopping center.
If you remember back in the day, Jubu was a stripper.
That's right. See how sexy I am now?
Yeah, he went by Buju back then.
Buju.
Yes. Or Biju, which means jewel.
Back then I could bite people with
What a notorious past we have. So now we're on Kalakaua, and of course it's named after King Kalakaua, the last king of the islands, but not the last monarch, because the last monarch was Queen Halekulani, his sister. David Kalakaua and his sisters, Miriam, Likelike, and Halekulani, were accomplished musicians. They knew their stuff. Want to cross here?
Cross here.
They knew their stuff. Music, and they composed many beautiful songs. Aloha Oi was composed by Halekulani. A story that I not so long ago actually learned about that song, was that the Queen was inspired by a scene in which she saw a woman and a man in a lover's embrace, and that's why she wrote, the lyrics about one fond embrace. Until we see each other again. And that woman, legend has it, was her sister, Princess Miriam Likelike, who was, at that time, they say, having a love affair with a man by the name of James Harbottle Boyd, who actually became the husband of one of her stepdaughters. Complicated histories, right? That was actually a story that was featured in Honolulu Magazine, if you want to check that out. I think we should go this way.
Okay.
Because I wanted to talk about Enna Road. Enna Road, and one of those 3 streams I talked about comes down from here into the lagoon. But Enna Road was a very famous place because they had a lot of dance clubs back in the day. In the 20s and the 30s, 40s, during the war years. Lots of big supper clubs are over here, and the road beyond these buildings here. And Enna Road features prominently in a scene in perhaps the most notorious crime trial in the state's history, which is the mass
What do you mean close, Skyler?
Why? Skyler's just walking with the thing. I'm out there trying to get everything centered while I'm walking around.
Wailana Coffee House. Wailana Coffee House is one of those fixtures in Waikiki that no longer exists because it got shut down, right?
Yeah.
And for those of us who have lived on Oahu, grew up here, if you were partying in Waikiki, you were going to Wailana Coffee House afterwards. You were having some pancakes, some Portuguese themed food, cornbread. You know, it was a place where you just gathered, and you'd walk in and you know everybody. But it no longer exists, unfortunately. Now we're going to the Hilton. We're at the corner of the Hilton Hawaiian Village, and here you have this series of statues that are like iconic for the Hilton Hawaiian Village. 3 hula dancers dancing the kahiko, right? The ancient Hawaiian style of hula. They each have a representation, and I don't have that at the top of my head of what it is, but each one of the dance positions represents an important element to Hawaiian dancing and Hawaiian culture. It's beautiful. It's made of bronze, and just over time, the aging of the metal has just made it even more beautiful. So we're here now, right at the edge of Fort DeRussy, and it's dark, so you can't really see what we're seeing, but there's a huge parking structure.
Is that here?
This is the parking structure.
That parking structure here.
And this is where the fish pond once was.
Oh, okay.
This whole entire area filled with fish.
Is there any significance with the pohaku that rings this field?
I personally don't know, but it's the kind of pohaku that looks like it has a history, right?
Yeah.
It definitely doesn't look like Disneyland style. It looks like it came from someplace. Like it had a home and it was taken and put into a different place, don't you think?
Yeah, that's the only reason why I asked, because it looks like there's history there.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're coming up to the part of Fort DeRussy where I have a story, personal story. And it's weird. The synchronicity of it is very strange because one of our members had mentioned that when he was here vacationing, I think it was, he was swimming off of Fort DeRussy. And as he was looking back onto the beach, he saw 2 different ancient Hawaiian warriors. One who looked like he was of some rank, high rank, and another one who looked like he was guardian. And when I read that story, it brought to mind and it made me remember of my dad telling me his story of this area. My dad, after he retired from the Navy 22 years, he got a federal job as a security guard for this entire area. And he had a partner, of course, that he used to walk around with. And the partner told him this ghost story that I'm about to share with you. So, and we're a little bit further away from where it actually happened, but there's a second parking lot in Fort DeRussy that is closer to the Trump International Plaza, right? Just on the other end of Fort DeRussy. And that parking lot was where he saw something very strange. Apparently, it was a very windy night, super windy, and my dad's partner was walking by himself to his car, which is parked in that lot. And then, all of a sudden, the wind stopped. With just stopped, 100%. And he saw under a spotlight a man wearing what? Is it called a kalu? The piece that covers your groin area. I can't remember the actual.
Not a loincloth?
Like a Hawaiian loincloth. I'm
Joe
sorry.
might know.
I
don't know offhand, but I know what you're talking about.
I can't remember. So please help me if you do remember that. But he was wearing that and a gourd helmet, and he was carrying a spear.
Oh.
And he was standing like a sentry, squared off shoulders, very tall man. My dad's partner said he was easily 6'5" or 6'6". And he was naked, but for that loincloth.
Yeah, Kapu warrior.
Yeah. And he was underneath that light, and he stared at my dad's partner, stared him down. And my dad's partner, who is Haole, by the way, got married to a Hawaiian woman. He knew if he ever came across something like that, he had to get on the ground, right? Prostrate himself. He didn't take his clothes off.
Did he pee on himself?
I don't think he did, because my dad would have definitely told me that detail.
Malo?
On Malo.
Malo, yes, that's it.
And he laid on the ground and for some time until the wind started blowing him down. And he knew that he could get up. And when he got up, that warrior was gone. So when I heard that story, and I'm getting myself chicken skin. Look at my chicken skin. Can you see the chicken skin? And my hairy arms. It just reminded me of that, because there are many people who have those stories about this area. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Well, I know the Hilton Hawaiian Village is one place listed as one of the more haunted hotels, said to be Pele.
Yeah, with the red dress.
Yes,
Yeah, someone
back
just
and forth.
brought that. Someone was talking about that.
Yeah, going back and forth in the corridors and all that kind of stuff.
Hawaiian Hilton Hotel, 1960s, and many workers see Pele in a red, who introduced herself as Pele.
Huh.
And she would walk between corridors and rooms and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Also, the beach fronting the Halekulani is supposedly haunted also.
Ah.
But what is that, Queens Beach here right in front of the Halekulani?
Queens Beach is
Further down?
Like over by the volleyball.
Yeah, something about that used to be the only beach the Ali'i could surf at.
Right.
And they're angry that everybody now surfs at that beach. So.
Yeah, because I know I've heard stories about Ali'i protecting their surf breaks.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Brianna asked, do you know anything about the old Japanese statue in the back alley of the old International Marketplace? I was flat, large, and faced the ABC store.
It's from the old International Marketplace?
Yeah, the old.
I don't have a story on that. I don't know. I don't think it's still there.
it might be the same story that a lot of people are saying.
Yeah.
The EV that was found there was left there during the old times, and they left the EV there and built around the location. Now, I'm just going off what I remember. The old banyan tree was the exact location of where the EV used to be, but I hear they've torn that down and
It was rat infested.
yeah, and now the EV is now located in the more like a total obvious. If I remember correctly, you told me it was obviously there.
It's very obvious. It's actually hidden in plain sight.
Yeah.
And what I've always thought would be interesting is to see if anybody who has like sensitivities to spirits or energies, if they could see or they could feel where it is. Because when you go into the new International Marketplace, when you find out where it is, it's like, whoa. Oh my gosh. But it's not unusual for buildings to have EV and to have interment places on the property.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
They oftentimes, and Brother Kai Markel could possibly chime in on this if he's watching or maybe later. Sometimes the decisions are made by the organizations that investigate these types of, findings.
Do nothing about.
Yeah, they decide, and maybe they coordinate with that decision. They make the decision with the property, whether to keep the bones there or to
relocate
them.
Yeah, there is something in Ala Moana. I don't know if most people know about this, but I call it the unforgotten burial ground. The EV is just buried.
Yeah.
It's been blessed and all that kind of thing, but there's no name to the burial ground, no nothing. It's basically, based on what I heard, is when they were building that building, they chose somebody chose not to do nothing about it. So in order for the construction to carry on forward, the bones were interned into a location. All of the bones of that location was interned in one spot.
Yeah.
And I call it the forgotten burial ground, but a lot of people don't even know that's what that is. So
It's so interesting because when you know, in ancient Hawaiian culture, rocks, pohaku, they have life, right? They have spirit.
Yep.
And remember, as I was talking earlier, the Ala Wai Canal was dredged, and all of that coral was taken up and leveled into the ground here. And coral's rock. And imagine all that spirit that's been sort of uplifted and discombobulated and spread around. It has a lot. It reminds me a lot of Kaneohe Marine Corps Base. You know how a lot of the sand, right, that the Evie was buried in over by the golf course.
You're good.
Was like redistributed into concrete, which was laid all over the base. And now we have, how many of our Hawaiian Hauntings members have talked about ghostly activity on the Marine Corps base? And we shouldn't be surprised, because with bones being mixed in the sand and the sand being mixed in the concrete and concrete being laid on the road and being made into house foundations, of course you're going to have hauntings. Of course you're going to have activity. You know, we're kind of far away from what another place I wanted to talk about, which had has a story about a
You know, you could
warrior.
stop anytime, right?
We can do it free.
We don't need to keep moving around.
I'm just so used to like walking and talking, and I've done this for.
Because I'm
We're
doubtful.
55 minutes into it too.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
doubtful the cops are gonna go, "What are you guys doing?" if we're just waiting for 5 minutes.
Right.
Worst case scenario.
And I know all of them, so they won't. They'll probably like, Carolyn, what are you doing over
No,
here?
I'm just gonna say
not
we're
your
doing
place.
ghost stories.
It's not your place. I wanted to talk to you guys about the Hawaii Prince Hotel.
Oh yes.
Yes. That is an amazing place for spiritual activity.
Yes, it is.
Because who knows, people on the live, who knows about the history of Hawaii Prince Hotel? Tell me why it's haunted. You can't answer because you're here. Anybody know?
Nothing yet.
Okay, I'll tell you. Because it was a hospital. It was the original Kaiser Permanente
Yep.
hospital. And in the 80s, it was imploded to make the Hawaii
hotel.
Prince Hotel.
Yeah.
And it was a very famous day, because Magnum PI used the footage in one of their episodes. You can look it up on YouTube if you're interested.
Like the old Magnum PI?
Yeah, the old Magnum PI, not the new one, the old one with Tom Selleck with the big mustache. So they used that as footage for one of the episodes. But the story goes, and I've heard this from Glenn Grant, I'm sure I've heard it from Lopaka, I've heard it from many, many other people.
It's a famous story.
It's a very famous story. Supposedly, right before they were going to push the button to implode it, a Hawaiian warrior came out the front doors. He came out, stood there so that everybody could see him, and then he just turned on his heel and walked back in. And it delayed the implosion for 2 hours because they were trying to find this dude. They couldn't find him, right? So I wish somebody had video footage of that. I mean, you would think they would, right?
This
or a
is
picture?
This is 70s.
No, it was 80s. It was 80s.
I thought it was in the 70s.
Early 80s.
Oh.
I mean, it would have something, but that's a very, very popular urban legend. And I
Yeah.
don't know if it's true or not, or if it's just a legend, but that's one thing that I can say. Because it's a hospital, or was a hospital, there's lots of spiritual activity there. Another thing about that area, there was a fire over by the Chart House, which is one of my favorite restaurants.
Is that by the Ilikai?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
the one downstairs from Morton,
Yes.
what used to be Mortonton.
Yes, there was a big fire in the 70s. Nobody was hurt. Nobody was killed, to my knowledge, but it destroyed a big portion of the property. But my husband and I go to the Chart House a lot, and we love it. Well, we actually used to. We don't go anymore because of COVID, but I will try my hardest not to use the restroom at the church.
Is it what? Is it the same thing as like the faceless lady?
Well, what it is for me is it's just like I get this like really strange negative vibe that actually makes me afraid, and I don't get fearful often. I'm a pretty brave girl, but when I go down there, it freaks me out. And the last time I was there, before the pandemic, I went there with my husband, and I was holding. I didn't want to go pee, and I couldn't hold it, so I went downstairs, and there was nobody in the bathroom with me. There were 3 stalls. I ended up going into the last stall, doing my business, coming out, and I heard the middle stall door just creak open.
I caught that stare,
Right?
by the way.
And then it went, and it closed back open. I mean, there's one thing to have it swing open, but it's a whole other thing to have it go to a closed position, right?
Yeah.
And that freaked me out. So I ran upstairs. I asked the bartender if there's any kind of weird ghost stories about this place, and he had this knowing look on his face, like, no. I'm
They
like, no,
do that.
certainly there was. So I asked the waitress, and she gave me the goods. She said, oh yeah, you are 100% right about that bathroom. It is so haunted, and we don't know what it's down there, but there's something really crazy. So try it sometime if you dare.
Is it just a female bathroom?
Female bathroom, to my knowledge. Yeah.
And it's at the Ilikai.
It's at the chart house in the Ilikai building.
Yeah, the Ilikai itself is haunted.
That's what I've heard too.
Brianna is staying in the Ilikai
Right now?
Right now.
Oh my God, synchronicity.
And she used to work at the Harbor Pub. We share those restrooms.
Oh, what did you think? Did you feel anything weird there?
There was a stabbing and a homicide at the Harbor Pub.
Oh, in the bathroom?
Was it in the bathroom?
Oh, chicken skin.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's a lot of modern type hauntings at the Ilikai.
that's a very, very, I tell you, it has a negative vibe there, like a very eerie vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate going to that bathroom. If I can help it, I don't go. I'll go to another bathroom. I'll go to like Outback's bathroom or Red Lobster's bathroom, but I won't go in there. Wow, that's crazy.
It happened near it.
Wow. Wow, that's crazy that she's staying at the Ilikai right now. Very cool.
Tell her to go to Coconuts. Go to Coconuts and sit next to the very back stall and tell me how you feel. That's Coconuts. Before that restaurant, Coconuts, there was
Yeah.
another restaurant there. They closed down because of a major fire that burned their kitchen,
Oh, goodness.
and one of the workers died.
Oh, man. Sidebar.
It's going on after an hour.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I mean, it will probably shut off soon, so we should probably say our goodbyes because I think it'll probably shut us off. But thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed our walking tour. And if you have any other like interests in any part of Waikiki, if you want us to do a little bit more research and tell you more ghost stories, let us know. But we're so awesome. You know, it's awesome to have you guys come along with us.
Thanks for doing this, Carolyn.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Skylar.
I think it's time for me to
Julie.
use a body strap when I do this next time.
Yeah.
Do you want to show us your stripper moves before you go?
Yeah.
My what?
Your stripper moves.
Your stripper.
Your boujou moves. See? That's why he carries a pole.
There's the pole, yeah.
That's why I carry a pole. Just for you
Oh
all.
my goodness.
See ya, guys.
Bye.
See you guys.
That's funny.
Oh, we can go. All right, never mind. We won't say goodbye.
We
then.
want to say goodbye. So if we cut off, it's not because we're being rude.
Hope you guys enjoyed that dance, though.
Hey, I know. Sexy, huh?
There's more of that.
Sexy. Me and my Filipino style.
It is so dark here.
It's,
Oh, you can-
well, based on what I researched, this is one of the spots that me and another, I'm not going to say his name because he might get mad, but me and another
We're gonna continue this.
ghost hunter
Yeah.
slash investigator slash explorer, so he knows who I'm talking about. We were gonna do this location right here because it is said that this was once an area that, you said this is where the heiau was, right? Fort DeRussy?
The heiau was over by the Royal Hawaiian area, but didn't Joe say there was another heiau?
Yeah.
Also by here.
Where did he say it?
I think he said there's another heiau even.
Because on the old maps there is what looks like a heiau.
Halekulani Beach. Kaiulani.
Kaiulani.
I don't know.
Oh, that's the
can't speak right
that's
now.
Papa Enena?
no, there's another name for it.
Near
Oh, near the Natatoria.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
that one.
Got it.
That one was where they sacrificed 3 prisoners. That's all the measles.
Oh yeah.
The bodies of the measles epidemic people were stored and all that kind of stuff. But when we were here, we didn't experience anything. But we were told that here late at night, maybe around 1, 2, you are able to actually catch shadows and people who aren't there. I mean, you'll see them like how we are standing.
Yeah.
But as you approach them, they disappear.
Real people or
they
shadow people?
They look like real people,
Oh.
but as you come by, they disappear.
Okay, I want you to get a picture of my chicken skin again, because I'm going to tell you, I wasn't going to tell you the story because I'm bit shamed, but I feel like it's a synchronous moment, so I will tell you.
Is it this location?
It is this
Okay,
location.
so-
So I had a boyfriend when I was a teenager, and he was a dear boyfriend of mine. I was with him for a while, and you know how dark it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're a teenager, you have teenager feelings. You're like, okay, opportunity is here. Let's do this. So we were over here in this garden area, which is called Kalia, actually, which means waiting place. It's a waiting place. And we decided to enjoy ourselves under a tree where it was very dark.
Mature content.
Right, watch your content. So I got distracted because I saw a face. Not at my level, not even here. It was in the tree. And I freaked out because I thought maybe somebody climbed the tree and somebody was staring us from the tree, right? So this was before cell phones, like we didn't have, but he had a flashlight on his keychain. So we shone up the tree right away, and there was nothing there, nothing at all. And there was no place that we would have heard it jump down, and we were so scared. Like we ran out and we went to the car. And then I told my dad, which was a big mistake because my dad wasn't very happy with me. And he's like, "Are you crazy? Why are you going out here? There's not to mention the fact that there's like lots of homeless people here, but there's also like people that are not alive, and you're attracting activity. They're probably curious about what you're doing." So I remember that. So it's funny that you said that.
Yeah, here, like I said, when me and that other collaborator, we ended up coming over here. We ended up choosing not to do it because he started having ominous feelings.
Yeah.
So it was just because he's a sensitive, and we basically chose to see the more frequented spots for tourists.
Yeah.
That's what our main goal was, seeing what was haunted in the frequented spots, so that people can understand, hey, when you go out there, show some respect because you don't know, maybe somebody be watching.
Right.
And we drove by on this road. We stopped further up, and we got out of the car. The parking lot. Instead of going into the parking lot, I just parked out there. Anyway, we walked this area. We walked all in that back area. He started having really foul feelings. So, then he told me of some of the stories that he heard from others, which is the one I told you where you'd see people that look like they're just standing there.
Yeah.
And they don't look like ghosts.
Yeah. They look like
figures, like
solid.
you right now. Yeah. Solid.
Isn't that interesting?
From a distance.
Whew.
But as you get close, and of course you're watching them through the whole thing, they
disappear. Well, there are lots of banyan trees around here, guys. And banyan trees in all cultures, especially in Asian cultures, are like soul captures.
Yeah.
or houses for spirits that are elementals. In In Guam, in the Chamorro language, they're called tatamona trees. And in the Philippines, they're called balete trees. And I can tell you, I've lived in both countries, both places, and they are definitely spiritual centers. And if during the day you're here in Port DeRussy, there are lots of banyan trees.
Yeah.
So you just never know, right?
Yep.
There could be some
And
truth
who's to
that.
say? Maybe capre.
Oh yeah, the
Again, I bring up the Filipino
Yes.
folklore,
They
but
have to, because capre, even Joe believes in capre, right? The big giant of
The
a
big
man
giant
that
of a
likes
man.
to smoke cigars and wear his Chinaman's hat. Yeah, and he likes trees. He really likes trees. Beautiful.
It's a nice night.
It is a nice night. It's not too windy at all, actually. It's not windy at all. It was a bit humid earlier.
It's so hot today.
Yeah,
So humid and hot.
getting our good exercise on, right?
I know, we've walked a lot.
Yeah.
yeah, this is nothing.
And we're only halfway in Waikiki. We did like the town side of Waikiki.
The town side.
And we'll do another half of it, but not tonight. For the other half.
Part 2 later.
Part 2 later.
Can we do the wizard stones tonight? No.
Yeah.
Further.
Well, I don't know. As long as we can capture it on the live.
Isn't it like
Yeah.
further, like super far though?
It's right across the Hyatt.
It's
Oh.
on Waikiki Beach, right?
Yeah.
The Duke statue or whatever. It's
It's right next to the substation.
the police station over there.
Yeah. The wizard stones.
Why don't you guys know the story?
Yeah. Well, tell us, Drew.
No, go ahead. This is your show, not mine.
Not my show. Well, the wizard stones. I'm not going to remember the names of the wizards. I'm not going to remember the names
Not
of the
Merlin.
stones. I can't remember the names. Not Merlin. Not Merlin. I'm pretty sure it's not Merlin. Or Dumbledore.
Gandalf?
No, not Gandalf. But the stones were supposedly brought over by these wizards who were from, what is it, Tahiti?
Yeah.
Am I
I
correct
think
in
some
that?
Polynesian island.
Right. And they were moved to some place, right? And they were somehow transported magically to where they are today, if I'm not mistaken. When we get there, we can read the placard, so we can actually have the accurate story. But I do know that those stones do have a lot of energy in them. I try not to ever touch them.
They're healing stones though, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. But I have this thing about staying away from rocks because I just don't know how they'll like me. Because if a rock has a personality, just because I'm interested in it doesn't mean it's interested in me.
True.
And I want to be respectful of it. So unless I feel like really compelled to touch it, I try not to. And the reason that is because when I was in Europe, my mom told me before I went to Europe, don't touch anything. Don't touch any of the old stuff. I know you like to touch old things. And what did I do? I did. I touched old things. I went to Rome, to St. Stephen's Catacombs, which is right outside of the city. And I was so fascinated by the catacombs that I'm over here touching everything. There are no bones anymore there. They removed the bones and buried them somewhere else. But, you could see almost like a honeycomb effect in the catacombs for where the bones used to be. So I touched all of that and went to the next place, which was Austria. And in Austria, I was attacked by a choking ghost. But my first ever choking ghost, everybody has a choking ghost story. That was my choking ghost story. It was in Austria. And I'm convinced that whatever I touched in the catacombs maybe came with me or maybe ignited something that was in the room. I don't know. But it was very, very, it was a terrifying moment. And even when I came back from Europe, for several weeks after, I had some infestation, spiritual infestation.
Really?
Yeah. And I told my mom, I didn't want to admit to my mother that she was right, but I told her finally. And she's like, I told you not to touch it. So she did a special prayer for me, and after a while it dissipated.
Which way we're going?
Probably this way.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the fear, right? I talked about this a lot on the group. If you have fear, it attracts spirits, and especially the darker ones.
Yes.
And once I started to rein in my fear, I noticed the activity dissipating. But
That is true.
listen to your mom, especially if she's a Filipino mom. She knows about ghosts.
All right.
What is the story with the lava rock circle surrounded by the Iron Gate outside Kaiulani Park near the Starbucks
Oh,
Kapalulu?
yeah. Yes. Okay, great question. So that is where bones, iwi, that were found in various parts of Waikiki and other surrounding areas, Metro Honolulu, were decided to be like laid to rest. And it's a controversial spot, actually. There are contingencies of Hawaiians who believe different things about it. Some believe, okay, at least there's one place where if bones are found and we don't know where they are or who they belong to, we could put them in this place with other bones. Others, Hawaiians believe, that you should leave the bones where they are found, right? Other Hawaiians believe that, like, let's say bones are found in like a family plot. You know, the family needs to decide where it goes. And so there's a lot of these different viewpoints about it, but there are 200 sets of bones in that sort of monument, if you will, a crypt. And it's right by the Gandhi statue. So it's right at the sort of the mouth of the zoo, right across from the Starbucks on Kapalulu. You guys should check it out.
I actually never knew about that.
Yeah, that's where Uncle Joe Ricca starts his part 1 tour of Waikiki. He does his tours in 2 parts, and he always starts his part 1 there. And he wanted to make sure we knew that about the iwi there, but also about the controversy, you know, because bones are very sacred to the Hawaiian people, are sacred to the Hawaiian people. Bones were thought to contain mana.
So you don't know nothing about this one?
No, is
It's a modern
murder
haunting.
place?
It's a murdered.
Looks creepy.
Somebody basically got murdered here. I think in the 90s. That's what I was told a long time ago. But I think it was more further back, like in the 80s. Supposedly somebody was murdered in here. The spirit now haunts the room. And one of the rooms, I can't remember what rooms it is, but it's basically in this hotel. And has poltergeist activity now.
That's
So-
your husband, isn't it?
Hey, babe. Oh, you're by the Halekulani. We're right by the post office, actually, on Saratoga. So we're very close. That's my husband, Dingy.
Why is he there?
He was trying to find us on our trip. He's trying to catch up with us.
If we wait here,
crazy.
he'll catch up.
I wanted to tell you guys something about this place since we're here.
Okay.
He's still here. Let him catch up.
Saratoga.
Yes.
Saratoga, if you are into horse racing, you know the Saratoga races in New York City. No, not New York City, New York State. But Saratoga, the road, was named for bathhouses. There were bathhouses here where the post office is
Bathhouses
right
in regards to
now. Like, you know, bathhouses.
Mama-san type bathhouses.
Yeah, or just, you know, you go in there
That's
and
the
you
only way I could describe it.
You
in
have
a
your bath.
good way.
And you have a good time. Right. I mean, different
I didn't know
cultures have
that.
different baths. Yeah, but this was like the street for bathhouses.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? That's a very
But
interesting
that's
tidbit of
the
information.
best way I can describe it.
And maybe it's appropriate because the Trump Plaza's right here.
Yeah.
Dum, dum, Yeah, this aloha. This whole area is I have so many memories because I was a military brat. You know, my dad was in the Navy, and countless weekends we'd come over here and park and just walk into Waikiki. This is, if you're a military brat, this is where you parked. But there was just, you know, when you grow up here in Hawaii and on Oahu, you're going to spend a lot of your time in Waikiki because this is where like the nightlife is.
If you're a city person.
If you're a city person, sure. If you're not a townie, then
Go to North Shore.
Yeah.
Go North Shore.
Well,
But
the
yeah.
North Shore's starting to be like a Waikiki now, so.
It's starting to get touristy, but
Yeah.
still.
Or Kailua is really touristy too, right? Yeah. I mean,
Go to Molokai.
Yes, go to Molokai, go to Kauai, the islands that go slow. Slow is the pace, not like Oahu.
I know. This is this area too was, from my recollection, I want to say over this side, the Halekulani was one of the very first hotels that was also built. It preceded the Royal Hawaiian, but before it became what it is now, the Halekulani, how you see it now, there were little cottages. There were little cottages there, and one of the most desirable parts of the beach,
With Mama-san houses.
What are Mama-san houses? Oh, there's an education. Okay.
I'm not gonna describe it. You're the one.
Okay. So bathhouses are very common in many cultures. In ancient Roman times, they were places to keep yourself clean. Romans were they were notoriously, like, they were germophobes. So they wanted to clean themselves a lot. But they were also places of debauchery, which means that there are lots of, things that happen there, pleasurable things for them anyway. Bathhouses in Asian cultures are places to clean yourself, but in some ways also areas of debauchery. So the bathhouses that were here in Waikiki in the early 1900s. Now, understand, this was during the time where opium was huge, right?
Yes.
Opium was a big thing. And so you had that going on. You had, this newfound wealth that was happening with people developing in this area. And you had all sorts of, cultures, clashing with each other and clashing and colliding, as I say.
Yes.
And you had bathhouses. So, put all those things together.
I'm trying to be kosher here.
We're going to have some interesting times.
PC is a good thing.
PC, right. Because you never know who's watching.
What's up? Who?
No, you never know who's watching.
Yeah.
That's why we gotta be PC when we're doing Facebook, especially on a live.
Especially on a live, yeah.
You see?
That's why
Family friendly.
Yeah.
We're just waiting for my husband now because he says he's over by the Halekulani.
You're gonna see. If you're looking for us.
Is he looking for us?
Looking for a bright light.
It's probably.
Go to the light, honey.
Go to the light.
Go
It's
to
the
the
stripper
light.
pole.
It's my stripper pole.
It's Jubu's stripper pole.
Go to the light.
You'll see Jubu dancing on his pole.
If
It's not hard to miss it.
Yeah, it's not hard. If you go into this part of Waikiki,
Kalia.
Kalia is, I've mentioned it before, it means the waiting place. And there's a story, the reason why it's called that is there was a Hawaiian man who had a beautiful wife, and she ran off with another man from Maui. And, she literally left him to go to Maui. And he waited in this area where the garden is, the Kalia garden. He waited and waited and waited and waited for her until she finally came back. She got tired of the other guy in Maui and said, you know what, I'm back. And his long waiting for her paid off. So that's why it's called the waiting place.
He waited for her.
He waited for her
Wow.
to come to her senses.
I think that's him. Is that him? No.
I don't even know where
No,
he
it's
is.
not him.
No.
We're in front of the Breakers Hotel.
Yeah, right next to the post office. You can't miss us.
Oh, is that him walking across the street?
I think so, yeah. My husband is a very big fan of Hawaiian hauntings, and he is a very good sport. He is so understanding about my interest in the ghost community. And he goes to a lot of these investigations with us.
Yeah. Are you going to the Moana Surfrider? What stories do you know about the staff
Didn't we
hallway
just pass? Didn't we
that
just
runs
pass
along
it?
the top?
We started, that's where, my hotel is close by the Moana, so that's where we started walking, and then we started filming at Seaside. But yeah, we totally can go to the Moana if you're interested, and we can do them.
She has a lot of good questions coming up. She's like asking all of them. And Lynn's asking, were the bathhouses in the 20s?
So the bathhouses were in the early 1900s, probably through right before the Roaring 20s.
The 2020?
2020. The Roaring 2020s.
There.
Yeah.
There he is.
Hi. There's a ghost coming. He's an African Zulu warrior ghost. My husband has some good ghost stories from Africa too. Hi.
Hello.
Joe Boo, you remember Alan and Skylar? That's my husband Dingy.
We're on live.
Oh, look at your
What's up, bro?
African mask. That's so cool. I was just telling everybody that this area was known for
You
its
gonna join us,
bathhouses.
right? Yeah. Okay.
How long is the live going for? That's crazy.
It's going on almost
We're an hour and a
1:30.
half now.
Yeah.
Dang. Maybe they gave us a little bit more time. Oh, they obviously did.
We're
Right?
still watching.
Yeah.
I didn't know the Facebook ones go that long, but I know the
didn't know
YouTube
either.
ones go super long.
But I guess
Oh.
Joe does some long lives sometimes.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks for keeping up with us, guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got a good
So
solid
are you guys
24.
gonna get to the hotel, the Prince?
Oh, the Waikiki, the Hawaii Prince. Well, we told this story, but we didn't get all the way over there because we didn't want to walk all the way over there and have to walk all the way back.
Thomas Magnum story, right?
Yeah, the Kaiser Permanente.
Yeah.
That's late news, honey.
Oh, late news.
Late
Talked about
news.
that already.
Like 45 minutes into it, I think.
Yeah. Keep
Joe says
up.
hi.
Oh,
Why am I not getting here?
Oh, loyal support.
Yeah, you guys are
Yeah.
just cutting me. That's why.
Ah.
I was like, hey, I'm not catching everybody. Now that I gotta catch 3 people in the shot. Ooh.
carry a bag.
Oh, see, my husband's awesome.
I
He's a gentleman.
can see you dying.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
So where are we headed now, Carolyn?
So we're gonna go back into Waikiki, and somebody had mentioned if we're gonna go to Moana. I don't know if we'll be allowed to go into Moana with our gear, but we
With
can
our gear?
definitely go by the Moana. And maybe I can ask one of the valet guys if we can just take a quick walk through the lobby. So the Moana,
Is that where a lot of people get, like, a lot of ghost hunters go and get kicked down and stuff?
well, I know that Lopaka's not allowed to go there anymore, but that's because he's super famous.
The famous
And,
guy, yeah.
Yeah, he's like the most prolific storyteller of ghost stories on the island, in the state. So they know him, and I guess they just made a decision there. But that's unfortunate for them because Lopaka's
He's pretty nice.
he's
He's
awesome.
pretty good.
He
Yeah.
has some
Yeah.
really amazing stories, and
I've seen some of his lives. He has some good lives.
yeah, I would if I were running the Moana. I mean, you got to own the history, right? The Moana has a lot of history, and it starts off with that murder of the woman who, Miss Stanford, the wife of the president of Stanford University.
Good.
It starts off with that as a ghost story, but there are other ghost stories associated with that hotel that are more modern, and some that are ancient.
Yeah, it's cool starting. They have the choice of remote or in person, but they have limited.
So now we're going back onto Kalakaua.
Yeah, I remember.
Can we
Hey,
cross
look.
here?
When we came
Hey, look.
over there.
It's haunted. Kalakaua was never this empty, guys.
Oh, no, right? Isn't it crazy? Very crazy
Yeah.
times.
Look at that.
Is there a story with this statue to our left here? They're after?
This statue. Well, you want to go take a look?
Oh, the Buddha?
Yeah. I don't have any stories.
I don't
about
know
this
any
one.
stories about it.
I think it's the fertility goddess. It looks like one. Or maybe we could just take a close-up of it.
What was that?
Because it's not really a place to cross.
Right there, yeah. It doesn't seem like a lot of us have any information.
Yeah, I don't have any information on that.
I got no
I got nothing.
story about that.
We're doing ghost stories. Are you guys from here?
No.
Giving you a heads up. Tonight at midnight, you guys have to have a mask. Because the ordinance,
Yeah.
the city's like shut everything down. Yeah. And you guys have to stay 6 feet away from each other.
Yeah,
like
they're
this is
getting
the last
strict
time.
about it. So.
Yeah, midnight. They're going up and up and up. Yeah. And you can't go to the beach anymore.
The beach is
Can't go to the beach. Can't go to the parks.
Parks are closing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to the toll.
No,
No, that's
midnight tonight.
midnight tonight.
Yeah. That's why we're doing kind of our last hurrah
Before we
before
stop.
we can't anymore.
Well, we can't anymore legally.
Legally, yeah. Yeah. Crazy.
That's bad news, but we sure appreciate the heads up.
Yeah, sure. Have you guys had any ghostly experiences since you've been here?
No?
Oh, you will.
Is
that a
thing for real?
Yeah, there's lots of ghost
Lots
stories.
of
Yeah.
haunted sites here, lots of cool
Oh
stuff.
yeah, because it's like layers of history, you know, ancient
Highways where
times.
you can't drive with meat in the car.
That's right. Like if you're going over the Pali, going to the windward side, you shouldn't have pork in your car.
Yeah, your car will break down.
Yeah, have it in your stomach or you'll get an experience where somebody's riding behind you in your car, staring at you like,
Yeah.
why are you doing this?
Yeah, you gotta be careful.
It's a new rule.
You know what you should do? Convince her to go to her old school. Oh yeah. Pearl City? Oh my god. Trying to get her to go. Oh, I thought she also went to Pearl City.
The day they went in,
Oh, they just went there. Oh.
His family is
All right, I'll conserve on this. Oh, too bad. Cannot.
in the past, well, who grew up here, you'll remember that this place was kind of like it was a bizarre bazaar, right? There were lots of different
A
shops.
bizarre bazaar.
Bizarre bazaar. Lots of different shops where you could get any manner of trinkets and toys and souvenirs,
Yes,
right?
I got my anime from here.
And fake IDs back in the day. It's where we all got our fake IDs to get into the clubs. The truth comes out. Also, there was it was a place of crime and a lot of rats. And in fact, this is not a ghost story, but it's creepy as all get out anyway. When they tore down the International Marketplace, all the rats came out. And no joke, they started running across the street and going into all these hotels. It caused such a problem for many of the hotels. They had to go and get the pest control people and take care of the rat disbursement, the diaspora of rats that happened when they tore down the International Marketplace. And you know, it was a controversial move because it's such an iconic spot in Waikiki. You know, it holds a lot of memories and nostalgia. Don Ho used to perform there before he moved on to the Hilton. A lot of the like old classic music acts were associated with International Marketplace. So it was a sad end of an era. But you know, personally, I think what they did to the mall, or what they did to that area,
It's better.
they actually, I think they took a lot of care in preserving much of the culture and the history of the place. If you've never been there to the new International Marketplace, you should check it out. They've done a really good job. I mean, some of the stores are really high end, and not all of us can afford that kind of stuff. I know I can't, but some of the other stores are pretty cool.
Waikiki, you can
So,
go.
you should definitely check it out. Hi. Definitely check it out. So this is the Moana. The Moana is the oldest hotel now in Waikiki. It is not the oldest hotel that ever was in Waikiki. There are many hotels in Waikiki actually preceding Moana. But this is the oldest one that now stands. And you'll see, it's kind of hard to see maybe now, but the Moana was like just the main building here. The wings.
One fucking
Moana was just the main building. And in the lobby, which is lobby space, restaurant space in the back, there's a beautiful veranda restaurant. There were rooms here in this lobby. And Mrs. Stanford, who was the wife of the founder of Stanford University in Upper California, she was murdered here in this hotel, I think the year after it opened. And speculation is that her secretary or her assistant poisoned her with arsenic, rat poison. But they think she did that because Mrs. Stanford had a bout of arsenic poison before she came to Hawaii, so it's very highly suspicious. But she did die in the hotel, and it's her ghost that supposedly haunts this lower level here. You know, she's seen a lot. But there's also there've been suicides here. It's not a very tall hotel, as you can see. Certainly the tower over here, which is the Ala River. This is the Ala River, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, that's tall. But it's not one of the tallest hotels here. But there have been some suicides here too, in which people's ghosts have been seen. But it's very beautiful. It was built in 1907, 1908, I believe. And it looks like just a colonial, beautiful grand old lady is what it's called. This is the Princess Kaiulani. That's kind of a creepy sort of shot of the tree, yeah? Can you hear the birds?
Yeah, that's the birds.
Yeah.
That's it's not a pigeon. It's
The parrot?
no, it's a shearwater, I think.
Oh, interesting. It's definitely a different kind of bird. But
Sounds like an evil laugh.
it does.
Yeah, it's right there.
Sound like a people laugh. There's my husband waving at it. But the Princess Kaiulani sits on what was Heiau, which was Princess Kaiulani's estate, ancestral estate, and it was 10 acres from the ocean to past the Ala Wai. And Princess Kaiulani was supposed to be the inheritor of the throne right after Halekulani, but unfortunately the kingdom was overthrown before that could happen, and she died when she was 23. But she lived here in like idyllic splendor. She was very good friends with Robert Louis Stevenson, who was a famous author, wrote Treasure Island, among other stories. And her husband, she was never married, but her father was a Scottish man by the name of Archibald Cleghorn. And I was telling the guys earlier before we started filming that before he died in his will, he said that he stipulated that the territorial government could utilize the land for what they wanted to use, as long as they kept some portion of it as a public park. And so the park that remains is just that triangular park on Kaiulani Avenue.
No worries,
Kaiulani and Heiau. That's it. Kaiulani, her spirit, is supposedly in the buildings here, you know. Princess Kaiulani's spirit supposedly roams the whole. Lopaka tells a really amazing story, which I won't retell here, but just short form, there was a guest who saw her spirit, a helpful spirit she was to the guest who needed some information. Sorry, was that too clear?
No, go ahead. Don't worry. Just keep on going.
But you know, what I want to say about this place that not a lot of people know is that there was a church here on these grounds. And there was a graveyard, right? And
then when it's green.
Kohio, when he divvied up the plots of land in Waikiki to sell, he took a lot of those bones and he had them put other places. It was a huge controversy during the time. Prince Jonah Kahia. And a lot of the Hawaiians at the time were very upset about that because they removed from the cemetery that was here associated with the church to a different location. I don't know where those bones were moved, but this was all sacred ground here too. Yeah, and I found that information out by reading an interview that was conducted by the University of Hawaii at Manoa. They interviewed Leslie Fullard Leo, who was a resident here during the early 50s, 40s, and 50s. He grew up here, and he remembered that as part of his like childhood memory. He aloha. In his interview, he said that this Moana Hotel, at the time when he was a child, only people who could go into this hotel were Hawaiians and Hawaiian. No Asians could go into the hotel, and it was a very elite place. So he remembers that distinctly. He said that in that same interview, he said that back in the day, before the Ala Wai, well, actually after the Ala Wai, but even still, there were lots of duck ponds. He said he remembers all the mosquitoes, all the duck ponds, and just Waikiki being a completely different place. And he said that the water seemed to be a lot closer to here.
It was.
Than it was where it is now.
Yeah, my dad said they actually filled up. They put more barriers and then added sand.
Yeah.
So Waikiki Beach is actually more expanded than how it was during our younger days.
Yeah.
Because they wanted more beachfront for the tourists.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Should we try to get into there? I don't know if it's open. Can you see the door? Because see, when it's open, the doors are open. They leave the doors open.
Yeah, there's a guy that was standing there.
He probably won't let us in.
Especially with
Yeah.
No, I can turn it off and make it look like I'm not doing anything. You want to try? Yeah. Hey, hold on. Let me set up.
Jaywalk here.
I don't want to.
There you go. All I have to do is just take this phone off and it looks like I'm not even using it. So the difference is it looks like I'm looking at people's butts. Yes, that's actually one of the reasons why they don't like the people want to come here. So I'm being a tourist, see? Yeah. But I don't realize. Yeah. Okay.
Big security guard, yeah. You can see it said no trespassing too. There's a sign that says no trespassing.
So there's nobody in the Surfrider right now, huh? Is that what you're saying?
Except the ghosts.
Except the ghosts. Well, hey, Just stand here and go. No, not gonna be disrespectful.
So you know, the bathrooms that are over
Wait,
here,
there's a ghost.
there's supposedly a ghost story about,
Nice.
Something is staring at us right now.
there's supposedly a ghost story about the bathroom that's up here.
Yeah, the ocean.
No, it's just right there.
Yeah.
What are you looking at? Seriously? I don't see it.
Don't see what?
No, I can't see it through my camera. Now I do. I guess I have to put a spotlight on it.
Don't shine it in the police car.
I know.
He's gonna be like, why are you blinding me?
Because you blind me all the time. Okay, this is your story, Carolyn. Tell it.
The wizard stone. I'm not memorizing the story behind the wizard stones other than I remember what I was told was they were brought from a different location like Tahiti by wizards, and they were initially brought to one location and moved to another, and nobody knows exactly how that happened. But there's a plaque here, I think.
Yeah, on the other side.
On the other side, let's look at the plaque.
Feels funny.
So we can actually get the real story.
Yeah, let's see.
Don't fall. I almost did too.
The ghost pushed me.
It's kind of a weird.
It's barely readable though.
Oh yeah, look at all this information. Hold on.
Is that in Hawaiian?
Oh, the
Yes.
wizard stones. Okay, my husband,
The English is
pulls
over
it up. It says this ancient site is located in the heart of Waikiki, right on the beach near the Kahanamoku statue. If these four giant stones could talk, they would have an interesting story to tell. Also called the stones of life, or Napahaku, Ola, Kapaimahu, Akapuni, the wizard stones are said to contain the mana or power of four wizards who came to Oahu from Tahiti a long time ago, possibly around 400 AD. According to this ancient legend, the four wizards named Kahaloa, Nohi, Kapuni, and Kapaimahu possessed healing power. They settled in Waikiki, near where today the Moana Surfrider Hotel is located. They helped the island residents by relieving their aches and pains, and the word about these healers spread quickly on the island. The wizards told the people that they didn't intend to stay on the island. Their intention was to heal, teach, and share their knowledge before returning home. Before they left, they gave the people instructions to build a monument in memory of their visit. On a full moon night, thousands of islanders met on the hill behind the neighborhood of Kanuku, about 2 miles away from Waikiki Beach, to move 4 large stones, each weighing a ton or more, to the place where the wizards lived, as they had been instructed. Before the wizards left Hawaii, they told the people that they would endow these stones with their healing powers. Today, these 4 stones are still there for people to see. They have been moved onto a platform and fenced in to protect and preserve them. Many visitors come to see the wizards in Waikiki each day and bring a flower lei to honor these healing stones. So,
There you have it.
There you have it.
you can't even touch them.
It's good.
I need healing.
People would vandal it.
They would. They would. Isn't this stones must weigh so much, right? Goodness. It's a miracle that they could even bring them down this way.
Nenehuni. Or in the Filipino culture, the wende.
That's I like.
Do you remember that night that we were here and we took a picture by the new statue? And incredible Olympic water man. And he won medals, Olympic medals, gold and silver for his swimming. And he was not only an athlete, but he was a shooter. And he's beloved. Beloved in society, beloved one. And he, this was his playground, this particular part of Waikiki where he really enjoyed hiking and walking. He lived, his family homestead was where the canal lived. That's where his family lived, but he loved this area. That he surfed a bluebird wave, bluebell wave. It's either bluebird or bluebell from Diamond Head, you know where the breaks are in Diamond Head, all the way to here, which
You
is
mean
like
Kaimana Beach all the way down?
past all you know where the Diamond Head lookout is. Those waves there, all the way over here.
Really?
Yeah, and they say that it's over a mile, and he surfed that wave all the way over.
That's
here.
crazy.
So that's a pretty cool story. The other thing I wanted to show you about the statue is that Duke's wife, when she saw this statue, she was a little bit concerned because she felt like his shorts were too short, too high up on his thigh. Where are you from? Where are you a student?
Hey guys.
Where'd you go?
Thanks again for coming by on this episode of OMG WAT DAT. I'm here with Carolyn, Skyler, and also Carolyn's husband, Dingy. We're gonna close the tour of Waikiki. For those of you who actually stayed on, thanks for coming on, and don't forget, share, like, and subscribe. Till the next video, I will see you later. Jibu.